Hello and welcome back to Doctor Who, the cancelled years. In this video, we'll be covering season 43 of Doctor Who. So, let's get started. Season 43 would have been the last season for Liam Cunningham as the Doctor, the first season for Sheridan Smith as Sally Ryder, and the third season for Stephen Moffat as showrunner. Nothing noteworthy changed between seasons, so there's nothing really to discuss. Episode 1 would introduce their new companion, Sally Ryder, who would be portrayed by Sheridan Smith. We first meet Sally on Earth in the far future, and while she appears like a normal character at first, Moffat made it clear from the start that he has an interesting plan for Sally in the future. This season would have been Cunningham's final year in the role of the 11th Doctor. As is traditional, the regeneration would be at the very end of the season. Like last year, this season opens up with a Christmas special, The Forgotten Christmas, written by Stephen Moffat. This story would have been set on modern day Earth and would have featured a one-off companion, Ashley Chambers, as portrayed by Rosamund Pike. The story is set on Christmas Day, however for some reason, no one has ever heard of Christmas. No one except Ashley. It turns out that the people of Earth have had their memories altered by a ray from space to make humanity forget about everything good in the world, including Christmas. This is so the invaders, known as the Clocksters, can easily enslave the planet. However, the Clocksters are defeated when the Doctor and Ashley are able to cancel out the signal by transmitting a Christmas song across the world using a radio transmitter, which restores everyone's memories of Christmas and forces the Clocksters to retreat. Overall, this story is pretty crap. And now, let's get to the main season. The first episode would have been The Last Humans, written by Stephen Moffat. This story would have been the introduction to our new companion, Sally. The story is set in the very far future of Earth, during a point in Earth's history where the planet has become too polluted to live on, and most of humanity have gone to travel among the stars. The Doctor arrives on Earth and soon discovers a tribe containing the last few humans on Earth, along with its leader, Sally Ryder. When the Doctor introduces himself to Sally, she is shocked to see him, as if she knew him already. However, before we have time to learn about how Sally knows the Doctor, the main plot of the story is introduced. A small, green rock falls to Earth and crashes smack bang in the middle of a sewer person's head. The rock begins to turn him into a blob creature, and the blob creature then goes around turning other sewer people into blobs. And before long, there's an army of blobs. The story sees the Doctor, Sally, and the last humans defending Earth from the blob creatures, who they call the Borads, from wiping out the last of humanity. However, they soon discover that they can't be killed, because if you chop off a part of a Borad, they just grow it back. They soon realise that the only way to defeat the Borads is to kill the original Borad and destroy the green rock in his mind. And when they find the original Borad, they discover it to now be 200 feet tall. The original Borad is eventually defeated, however, when they blow up some buildings around it, which cuts it down to size for a minute, and gives the Doctor and Sally a chance to remove the rock and smash it into pieces, which reverts everyone who's been converted into a Borad back to normal. The story ends with the Doctor getting ready to depart, and then he offers Sally the chance to travel with him, which she immediately accepts. We then get the usual bigger on the inside shenanigans with the TARDIS, and then the Doctor asks Sally where she wants to go first. The second episode would have been The Red Museum, written by Mark Gatiss. The story would have saw the Doctor and Sally on a trip to Mars, where they discover a museum containing the rich history of Mars and the Ice Warriors, with the greatest piece of the museum being an intact Ice Warrior suit. However, after a bit of exploring, the museum goes into lockdown, and we see a creature moving in the shadows and picking off some of the tourists. It turns out that the creature is an exposed Ice Warrior named Grand Marshal Welsh, who thawed out under the ice 5 million years after the Ice Warriors went extinct. Now Welsh plans to kill everyone who isn't an Ice Warrior, and summon an Ice Warrior ship, which he believes to exist, to come and rescue him. The story would have acted as a typical base under siege, with the Doctor trying to make peace between Welsh and the Martians, but being unsuccessful as the Martians attack Welsh. After eventually discovering that his race is mostly dead, Welsh goes insane and tries to blow up the planet. However, Sally is able to convince Welsh to stand down. She tells him that she knows what it's like to lose someone special, and it may be difficult for a while, but they must go on in their memory, and hope that one day they'll find them again. The story ends with Welsh feeling he has a new purpose in life, and going off in an old Ice Warrior shuttle to explore space in hopes of finding his people. The third episode would have been The Fires of Pompeii, written by James Moran. This would have been pretty much as it is in real life. As such, I don't really need to discuss it. The fourth episode would have been The Invasion of History, written by Toby Whithouse. This story would have been set on modern day Earth and would have been quite an unusual one. The Doctor and Sally arrive on Earth and discover that the humans are peacefully coexisting with a race of ghoul-like aliens named the Noms. When the Doctor looks into the Noms, he learns that everyone thinks that the Noms are from Earth, and that they've been living with humanity forever. But they haven't. Somehow, the Noms have retconned themselves into history. The Doctor finds Eunice and General Amanda Powell, and learns from them that the Doctor's theory on the Noms is true. They've retconned themselves into history using a radio broadcast. However, some people with strong minds can resist the broadcast, though the Noms are tracking them down, and when they find them, they'll kill them. The Doctor and Sally work with Unit to infiltrate the Noms' base of operations, and try to find a way to cut out the retcon signal and make humanity remember the correct history. When they reach the main control room, the Doctor plugs his mind into the Noms' computer and uses his memories to restore the correct history. And while this nearly kills the Doctor, it's not enough to trigger regeneration. The story ends with Sally and the Doctor returning to the TARDIS and preparing to leave. Meanwhile, this is all intercut with footage of humanity realising they've been tricked and either panicking and running or fighting and attacking the Noms as the Noms try and escape from Earth. The fifth episode would have been Restoration, written by Steve Lyons. This story would have been set on a human colony world named Radavo 5. The Doctor and Sally find the world to be in bad shape, as many years ago, the planet experienced a nuclear war that left the planet in a radiated state. The Doctor tries to help the people of the planet the best he can, providing medicine and aid. And then he learns of a scientist named Dr. Clark, working on something known as Project Future, the cure for the people of Radavo 5. The Doctor's suspicious, as it sounds like the making of a Cyberman invasion, so he and Sally attend the first unveiling of Project Future, and to the Doctor's surprise it isn't the Cybermen, but to his horror it's something worse than the Cybermen. Something he thought he'd never see again. Something he thought was long dead. As out of a doorway rolls a Dalek. The Doctor goes insane as he can't believe it. After all he's went through, after sacrificing his own people, the Daleks still aren't dead. We soon discover, however, that these Daleks are different to the mutants from Skaro, as they were created on Radavo 5 by Clark, using the DNA of a Dalek survivor that crashed to the planet many years ago, and the people of Radavo 5. These Daleks still possess their actual names, and still believe themselves to be who they were before they were turned into Daleks, but are aware that they're stronger than they used to be. When the Doctor exposes Clark's works to the people of Radavo 5, they're disgusted that these machines are them. A battle breaks out between the Daleks and the people of Radavo 5, and Clark orders the Daleks to protect her. However, as the battle goes on, the Daleks become more and more Dalek-y, as they start disobeying Clark and eventually treat her as an enemy, which results in her death. Eventually, the Doctor is able to defeat the Daleks by creating an airborne virus that uses the radiation in the air to destroy the Dalek casing and melt the mutants into acid. In the end, the Doctor finds one surviving mutant crawling around on the ground. The Doctor is ready to stomp on the mutant to death, but pauses and retracts his foot. He looks the mutant straight in the eye and tells him that after the war, he promised never to be responsible for a genocide again, and this time is no exception. The Dalek gets to live, but it's getting no help from the Doctor, and he and Sally return to the TARDIS, leaving the mutants stuck in the ground and screaming in agony. The 6th episode would have been The Monster of Markatron, written by Gareth Roberts. So after that very dark story, this one is very light and fluffy. The story is set on Markatron, the greatest market in the universe, as Sally wants to go shopping and the Doctor is curious to visit. However, the two of them soon find themselves wrapped up in a mystery as people begin to vanish in the market. It turns out that there's a creature living in the bowels of the ship named the Barak, who has the ability to absorb the minds of people as energy. He also has the ability to disguise himself as a humanoid, which he uses as a disguise to lure people to the bowels of the ship. His plan is to absorb enough energy so that he can take over the entire market and escape to other worlds. However, the Doctor defeats the Barak by having the Barak absorb a time manipulating device, which causes it to absorb time, and because time is infinite, the Barak can't handle it all and it results in him exploding into pieces. The 7th episode would have been The Death of Kennedy, written by Robert Sherman. The story would have covered the assassination of John F. Kennedy. It sees the Doctor and Sally arriving in the year 1968 and finding America to be the most deadly country ever, with millions of people dead and a nuclear war on the way. After researching into this universe some more, they discovered that the assassination of Kennedy in Dallas failed, as Lee Harvey Oswald was discovered by an unknown stranger and was eventually arrested. The Doctor and Sally go back in time to 1963 to find out who stopped Lee Harvey Oswald. They find a former member of the Anti-Tempests named Scar, who went rogue from the faction and now meddles with time on his own terms. However, Scar is eventually defeated when the Doctor is able to protect Lee Harvey Oswald and frame Scar as Oswald's second man. The 8th episode would have been An Earthly Child, written by Mark Platt. After the Doctor's recent encounter with the Daleks, he's still not quite right. Sally asks if he has any family he can speak to. At first, the Doctor passes off that he has no one, but then he remembers he has one other person still out there, his own granddaughter, Susan. The Doctor travels to the year 2204. After finding her and convincing her that he is her old grandfather, the two get acquainted. We learn a lot about what happened to Susan after the Dalek invasion of Earth. She ended up marrying David Campbell, but he sadly passed away a few years ago. She also had a son named Alex. However, Alex isn't aware that Susan isn't from Earth. Meanwhile, Susan herself is now the head of Earth's council, trying to find a way to save the Earth, as the planet is now suffering with failing crops and civil unrest. Soon afterwards, the planet comes into contact with a race named the Guldrissi, who contact Earth about the possibility of helping the planet. However, unknowing to everyone, they plan to turn the planet into a slave planet. Susan attempts to form an alliance with them, however this causes issues between her and Alex, as Alex believes all aliens to be evil, and he ends up joining an anti-alien cult named the Earth Union, unknowing that his own mother is also an alien. Eventually, Susan reveals to Alex that she was born in another time, another world, and Alex learns that maybe not all aliens are evil. Together, they are able to defeat the Guldrissi by banishing them from Earth. At the end of the story, the Doctor sits down with Susan and tells her what's happened to Gallifrey. She's upset but optimistic, as maybe they're alive, just living in a parallel universe. The Doctor smiles, but deep down, he knows it can't be true. He then offers Susan the chance to come with him, but she declines, as she has a lot of work to do rebuilding the Earth. And with that, the Doctor and Sally depart in the TARDIS. The 9th episode would have been Human 2.0, written by Stephen Moffat. This would have been the first part of the finale. The story begins with the Doctor and Sally arriving in Earth's future, a few years before humanity left Earth. However, something is very wrong, as the human race is missing, and in their place are the Cybermen. Most, if not all, of the population have been converted, and the Doctor must figure out how and when. After researching through some old computer archives, the Doctor discovers that the Cybermen were supposedly created on Earth in 2006 and originated from a scientist named Christine Fleming, played by Devla Kerwin. After learning all they need, the Doctor and Sally go back in time to find this Christine and stop the Cybermen uprising. While in 2006, they research more into this Christine to find out any information that may help them. They learn that Christine claims the Cybermen as their own invention, and says that they're the next step in human evolution. The Doctor and Sally make contact with Unit and Amanda Powell and form a plan to stop Christine, but unknown to the Doctor, Christine has learned of the Doctor's presence and has sent a group of Cybermen out to kill the Doctor. A battle breaks out between Unit and Cybermen. Unit are able to push back the Cybermen, however one of them grabs Sally and takes her away with them. The Doctor and Amanda track down Cybermen headquarters, and the Doctor tells Amanda to prepare for an attack on the base. Meanwhile, he's going ahead in the TARDIS to try and rescue Sally. When the Doctor arrives at Cybermen headquarters, he finds it to be a private estate castle. He explores around a bit, but is soon captured by a group of Cybermen and is taken to their leader, Christine. The Doctor's taken to this big room where Christine awaits him. The Doctor's handcuffed and is prepared for execution. Meanwhile, Sally is brought in and tied down to a cyber conversion chair. The Doctor then notices a container next to the conversion chair, a container containing Time Lord DNA. The Doctor asks Christine how she acquired it, and Christine says that she got it from home before it was destroyed. The Doctor looks in horror. Christine is a Time Lord, but which one? The Doctor asks who she is and Christine chuckles. She then looks at him and says, "Why me, Doctor? It's me, the Rani." The Doctor is in horror, realising that the Rani is back and that she somehow survived the war. The Rani tells the Doctor that she knows what he did to Gallifrey and that he'll pay for what he's done. She fires up a laser and prepares to aim it at the Doctor. And the story ends with the Doctor about to die from laser fire and the cyber conversion chair turning on as Sally screams for the Doctor's help as conversion begins. The final episode would have been Last of the Time Lords, written by Stephen Moffat. This would have been the second part of the finale, and also would have been the final story for Liam Cunningham as the Doctor. The story begins with the resolution of the cliffhanger, with the unit team storming the castle and rescuing the Doctor and Sally in time. A few of the Cybermen are killed, however the Rani and the remaining Cybermen teleport out using a vortex manipulator. The Doctor and Sally are rescued and taken back to headquarters. There they work with Amanda to figure out the Rani's plan. They soon figure out that the Rani is injecting Time Lord DNA into Cybermen in an attempt to resurrect the Time Lords. Meanwhile, we see that the Rani is teleported to an underground facility. The Rani orders the Cyber Leader to get their army together and plan a full-on attack on the Earth. The Cyber Leader obeys, however when the Rani leaves the room, we learn that the Cyber Leader has plans to betray the Rani as soon as they get everything they need from her. Back at Unit HQ, the Doctor's tracked down the main cyber base, and the Doctor tells Sally and Amanda he's going alone, as this is personal to him. He heads off in the TARDIS to the cyber base, where he finds the Rani waiting for him. The two begin to talk. The Doctor asks the Rani how she survived the war, and she reveals that she refused the summonings and went into hiding. She tells the Doctor that she heard of what happened to him and how he became a warrior. She also reveals that she knows that he was responsible for Gallifrey's destruction and that their race is dead. The Doctor tries to convince the Rani that maybe the Time Lords are alive, albeit in another universe, as they were working on a way to jump into a parallel universe. But the Rani believes the Doctor's lying. She believes the Doctor to be a murderer, and what she's doing is right. The Doctor offers the Rani help. He'll try to help her recover from the war and convince her that their people may be alive. But she declines and teleports away. The factory begins to shake. The invasion is beginning. The Doctor then returns to the TARDIS. We see the Rani and Cyber Leader watching out of a window as the Cybermen begin a full-on invasion across London. and then a group of Cybermen stop the Rani, and the Cyber leader reveals that she's of no value now. The Cybermen prepare to shoot her, but then the Doctor materializes the TARDIS around her at the last second. Inside the TARDIS, the Doctor comforts an upset Rani. She tells him she's sorry and that she just wanted to bring their people back. The Doctor understands and says that he feels the same way. He wishes he could see his people again. But he goes on in their memory, and maybe one day they may find a way to bring them back. Until then, they've got to be strong. The TARDIS arrives back at Unit HQ, where the Rani announces that she'll try and help Unit take down the Cybermen. She reveals that all the Cybermen, including Cyber Leader, are controlled by a thing called the Cyber Hive, which is located underneath the castle. If they can somehow find a way to destroy the hive, then all the Cybermen will be destroyed. So the Doctor, Sally, Amanda, and the Rani head out to the old castle to find and destroy the Cyber Hive. The Doctor and Rani go overhead, while Amanda and Sally stay behind to fight off the oncoming Cybermen. The Doctor and Rani go deep underneath the castle and soon find the Cyber Hive. The Rani tells the Doctor that he can destroy the hive by plugging his mind into the hive, and that he will be connected with the hive. From there, he can do whatever he can to destroy the hive, but he has to be quick, as the connection is reversed, and the Cyber Hive can destroy his mind. The Doctor plugs himself in, and then we see inside the hive. The Doctor works out that he can destroy the Cyber Hive using emotions. He brings in his memories of the horrors he saw during the war, and uses the horror and fear of those memories to destroy the Cybermen. We then see Cybermen across London screaming in horror and then exploding into pieces. The Cybermen are defeated. Sally and Amanda go back into the castle to find the Doctor and Rani. The Doctor tries to disconnect his mind from the hive, but he can't, as the hive has latched onto his mind and is trying to upload itself into the Doctor's mind. The Doctor fights the hive as his mind begins to burn, and then Sally snatches Amanda's gun and shoots the hive control panel into pieces. The Doctor falls dead to the ground. The sudden cut-off from the hive caused his mind to fry. The Rani comforts Sally, though she isn't upset, more concerned. She tells her that the Doctor has had many lives before, and that this one is over. Then the Doctor begins to regenerate, as a golden glow covers his hands and face. The three watch as the Doctor changes into his next incarnation. Then the regeneration dies off and the Doctor wakes up, and we're introduced to the new Doctor, who would be portrayed by Robert Carlyle. And then we go into the end credits. And that concludes season 43 of Doctor Who. Overall, a very good season, and shown that Doctor Who was back in its prime. So join me next time for season 44 of Doctor Who. Until then, thank you for watching and goodbye.